get money from other people who have had to work hard for them.
Okay, well, and away from that, let's come into the COVID-19 scenario. And, the Daily Nation paints a picture of what the numbers are like across Africa. This year, of course, right there, we know very well that as a country, we now stand at 23,202. And we have 388 deaths recorded, and the people who've recovered stand at 9,327. We are ranked number 7 across Africa from the numbers that have risen, in different parts. South Africa also being hit so hard for that particular matter. And also a reminder from the Ministry of Health as of yesterday, they say it's important that we dispose masks properly because, as it stands, they are also hazardous to the environment and also counterproductive in ensuring that we are able to deal with the aspect of COVID-19. So scientists also have developed rapid test kit for coronavirus, and without sophisticated equipment or highly trained individuals, we could soon know your COVID-19 status, or you could soon know your COVID-19 status in less than an hour. This is coming aboard probably to address the issue of delay in getting results. And I think there's been blames and, complaints of the same, as of course the government has come out to, justify this by saying that the shortage of swabs and reagents. So the question then is, just how successful are we likely to be on dealing with COVID-19?
I think as time goes by, we are seeing new developments that are coming in play, and it's the scientists are not sleeping. They are awake all through trying to come up with ways on which this particular pandemic can be dealt with. And I think one of them is that rapid test kits that are being developed so that we don't have delays that have been experienced before, that we have people who have had to wait for their results long, and already probably they are infected with this particular virus and they may continue spreading it to other people. So when we have these particular rapid tests so that you can get your results early enough, it will be very efficient in ensuring that we also get the results, and certain people who are positive are isolated in time so that they don't infect other people. And it will also challenge Kenyans to go out there and get tested, because most of them, when you ask them why they don't go for testing, voluntary testing, they will tell you that sometimes the results will take long because they have seen it happening before. You have heard the truck drivers complaining that they have had to wait for long for them to get their results. So the moment we have these new developments coming in place and such kind of results are relayed to them in good time, then we're able to deal with this particular pandemic, and we're able to encourage people to go out and get tested. So we are likely to see more developments as far as the fight against this coronavirus is concerned. New developments coming in play, and it's just a matter of wait and see to see what other aspects will happen. And I want to really say that Kenya is trying, because we have our own Cambria and all that, trying to see how effective they can be in ensuring that they deal with this pandemic, and they also join the world in coming up with ways in which they can be able to do that.
All right, yes, and away from that, we still at that point of COVID-19, not really away from it, but in a story that is connected to the same, and bringing a different picture of what things have been between Kenya and Tanzania. And this story right here talks of the elusive togetherness that has been there between Kenya and Tanzania. Kenya-Tanzania ties at all-time low. A senior official at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs wants issue to be handled by experts. And what do you make of this? We always have these diplomatic rows between us and Tanzania, yet it should be contrary.
Yes, really, if you look at what is happening right now, of course, the Foreign Affairs Ministry has tried to downplay such kind of tiff between the two countries, but then it is in public domain that the two countries are now not in good working relationship. And of course, this has to do with the way Tanzania is handling the COVID-19 situation in their country. Of course, you remember that the President Magufuli has already declared Tanzania COVID-19 free. And the president in Kenya is saying that really we need to be a bit serious with how we deal with this particular pandemic, and they have taken a stance, and they have had that kind of restrictions in the borders and all that. And I think this is where now the Tanzanian government has come in place, because they think that the Kenyan government is really trying to keep off Tanzania, yet they have declared to be coronavirus free. So I think there is that fight that is there between these two countries, just because of the way we are dealing with this particular pandemic. Remember what the president said the other day when he was addressing the nation, that as a country, we cannot afford to keep quiet when our people are dying. We cannot afford to keep quiet when the infections are going high, that information has to be given to the public. And he said that there are countries who may not give the accurate information as they are, and probably when he was speaking, he could be referring to such countries as Tanzania. And when the Tanzanian counterpart spoke, that is President Magufuli, he talked of countries that have their curfew hours at night. And he was quoted saying that these are people who think that the virus is only spread at night. So there is that particular fight that is happening between these two countries, and it is very detrimental. It is very dangerous, this fight, because you realize that these two countries enjoy a mutual benefit as far as trade is concerned. At the moment we have these particular differences, then we affect the trade, and the people who suffer are the traders who are down there. So it is important that the experts come in place. The ambassadors, of course, the foreign affairs ministers need to have a robust discussion on how to end this particular tiff, so that the two countries can continue working in relationship. Because in the past we have seen them doing that, and we would expect that they reconcile and have the two countries work to be back in their good working relationship, as it were.
Right, and beware of mobile wallet thieves, CA tells Kenyans. And of course, our representative lost about 1.9 million from his accounts while in Israel last year. Just how safe are, the monies that you put in your phone? Do you always feel safe? Do you always feel like they're in the right place? Don't you ever get scared that you might meet, thugs, and they'll tell you, what, withdraw kila kitu yenye uko nayo?
I think these are issues that have been there before. Of course, there have been cases of mobile wallet thieves happening before in our country. It's not the first time that we are seeing this, and therefore we need to be assured that our money is safe, because very many Kenyans have been forced to withdraw money without their consent because of the lack of proper safety in terms of how this money is handled, and therefore it calls on the banks to also be very stringent and have proper education to the public. They should be very careful, especially with their money, so that we don't have this, because you realize that thieves are becoming a bit advanced in how they get their monies, and therefore it will also be important for Kenyans to be very, very secure even during these hard times. And it's very easy to do that, because they will simply sometimes I don't know how they're able to get your passwords and all that, and without your knowledge you see that huge amounts of money have been withdrawn from your accounts. And therefore it also calls for the banks to be a bit stringent on how these particular things happen. And what we are seeing, I think many banks are also developing ways in which they can deal with this particular issue, so that it does not recur, because it affects very many Kenyans. If you ask how many Kenyans have lost their money through such kind of ways, you will be shocked. There are very, very many that are not reported, but probably they could be in huge sums or some in little sums, but still it raises questions on the safety of their money.
I agree, Collins. Now we cross over to the People's Daily, as we of course tell you that you need to be cautious. If need be, do not have so much money that is stored in your mobile wallet. I mean, because it is pretty much unfortunate.
Yes.
And sometimes they don't even have to get your PIN number. Like I said, you just bump into them. I know of a friend who's gone through that. They come to you, they tell you zote tuingie ni KCB toa ini toa. So if you have so much money of it, you lose almost everything. And secret meeting that averted Senate revenue showdown. This one has been captured on page 4. Just page 3. Atwoli's 50-acre ranch, the Mart, Kajiado County, is fast becoming the place where political careers are created or annihilated. Do you agree to that?
Yes, it's evident. It's now evident that we are seeing that Atwali's Kajiado home has become a place where such decisions are made. Of course, over the weekend, we saw pictures in the social media of the former prime minister together with, the former minister, that is, what is his name? We have PK.
Well, yes, we had Orengo, we had
Yes,
the
we
former
had
prime
Orengo, we
minister,
had all those.
we
I
had
mean,
Peter Kenneth.
yes, so then you'd want to believe that there were discussions on politics and all things that are happening in the country. So it is very correct to say that indeed it is becoming a powerhouse, so to speak, where people make certain decisions, they go there, meet, and we have had meetings even from the Luya Nation happening at Atwoli's home. So it tells you that probably is a man to watch as far as the decisions of this country are concerned, because he has been given that particular huge power. I don't know from where, but at least you can see how powerful he has all of a sudden become, so much that people assemble in his home to make certain decisions and to make certain proclamations as far as the 2022 politics are concerned, as far as the BBI politics are concerned. And he has been in the front line in championing for certain aspects in the BBI. And I mean, these are discussions that needs to happen because, he has become a key decision maker as far as the Kenyan politics is concerned. So it is correct to say that he may be one of the quote-unquote political brokers.
Okay, well, let's see. Indeed, well, from how he speaks, like he says, he has no interest in running for any seat, but he is actively involved on the politics of the country. There is a very heartbreaking story right here, captured on the front page and extensively expounded on page 2 of the People Daily. Family pain as a 48 test COVID positive. In a blood-curdling narration, Nakuru lawyer Gordon Ogolla reveals how his elder brother succumbed to the virus within 24 hours of admission, and his 80-year-old mother fought for her life in intensive care. And Moses Osoro Ogolla, who's captured below, will be buried today at his home in Godngoche village, Migori County. But as expounded right here, imagine 48 of you. This probably speaks hugely of how COVID-19 is equally ravaging families as it stands.
Yes, really, it's a very sad story. Looking at 48 is just a huge number, and therefore, again, that speaks volumes on how this particular disease can be so dangerous to our families that we need to be careful even when we are at home and the people we interact with, so that we don't end up infecting such kind of a population. That is huge. Losing such kind of close family friends is something that no one would want to go through. And therefore, as a country, we need to take this particular disease seriously. And I'm happy that Kenyans slowly are accepting to heed to the directives by government, because in the past they have been a bit skeptical. But when we have such kind of pictures being painted to them, then it tells them that they need to be serious so that they don't end up in such kind of situations, because we don't want to see ourselves losing more Kenyans to this particular disease, because we don't want to be seen as though the disease is winning. We need to win against it, and the only way we can win against this particular disease is when we keep safe, we continue observing the regulations by the Ministry of Health, so that we don't end up losing more lives, because it's very sad. And you have seen in the news, we have been told about high profile people who are losing their lives, and therefore as Kenyans we don't want to go that direction. It can be dangerous too. You're talking of within a day somebody has passed on because of this particular virus. So again, we have to be very serious, because it is very sad losing even one, let alone all those people. Losing even one family person is very heartbreaking, and we wouldn't want to go that direction. Let us abide by the regulations given by the Ministry of Health.
All right, well, that's an unfortunate story, and coming all the way to page 4, more or less the stories that we've captured on the other newspapers. Also, team of MES query extend term. Ad hoc committee at the Senate, of course, probing the 63 billion managed equipment service gets 34 more days. And Senate ad hoc committee investigating the 63 billion leased medical equipment under the controversial managed equipment services has been given 34 more days after it sought for an extension to conclude its work. Matters, corruption. First of all, well, they say the wheels of justice grind slow, but as it grinds slow, I mean, what are the likelihoods that we're going to get answers? At this time of COVID-19, numerous people are becoming rich, making money out of this, begging the question as to just how genuine, the government can be in terms of dealing with corruption in the country. What do you make of these extensions, and what do you make of the current cases that we are witnessing, courtesy of, some special officials getting numerous of monies out of, the monies that have been awarded to deal with COVID-19 in the country?
First, let me say that it's unfortunate that people would want to profiteer from such kind of a pandemic, that people would want to make money out of a situation that is very sad to the country. Mm-hmm. And again, if indeed what we read in the papers is anything to go by, again, we are talking of people who are supplying PPEs that are not in good condition. We are killing our people when we continue to do that. And such kind of people need to be brought to book. And no one is above the law. It's important that corruption be fought, and without any kind of excuses. We don't expect government to give excuses. We expect the DCI, the DPP, the EACC to take up this particular matter once and for all and deal with it. Because anytime we have a story running in our newspapers, it's not to be ignored. They should take it into consideration, question those particular people, and bring to book all those that have been found culpable, so that we don't have Kenyans continue suffering because of mistakes made by others. Some of them, Kenyans have continued to pay attention to the regulations by the Ministry of Health, but probably the masks that they wear may not be in good condition because they were supplied by people who are not certified. And therefore, the corruption that is happening around this particular matter needs to be dealt with. And again, we are talking of the corruption that happened before in the Ministry of Health, where the procurement of the health facilities and all that, and the Senate calling for an extension of their term. Let's hope that they mean it. Let's hope that they are going to interrogate it, and we are going to see those senior officials who have been mentioned as having been part and parcel of the group that swindled funds to the tunes of billions in the Ministry of Health are brought to book. Let's not have these headlines that a discussion is happening, then when it comes to prosecution, we don't see it happening. We want to see high-profile prosecutions, because that is the only way that we will be able to see that the government is winning on the war against corruption. And again, as I have said, no one is above the law. Every person who has been mentioned must be held accountable, because these are public funds. We have, as a country, taken loan from other countries to deal with COVID-19. And these loans are going to be repaid by our own citizens. We are going to repay them through our taxes. And the moment we don't hold accountable those who are in leadership, then they will continue to perpetuate such kind of evils, and we are the people who continue to suffer. So they need to be called out, and they need to be told that it is wrong to do that, and they need to be held accountable, taken to court. I mean, the justice system has now been digitized, so we expect people to still go to court without excuses of COVID-19. Let them be held accountable, and let them tell us where the money is, so that as a country we don't keep going back and forth on this issue of corruption, because as far as I'm concerned, we have not yet won on this fight.
All right, and speaking of which, let's cross over to the cartoon editions and the PPEs that we're talking about, the numerous, stuff or goodies that are, of course, in the bag of COVID-19 are, interesting. And when you look at these goodies, they are not goodies because they are goodies. They're out here so that they can help us deal with COVID-19. But as it stands, looking at the cartoon edition on the Daily Nation, I mean, that huge, guy right there who calls himself the PPEs, fully loaded, and numerous of leaders and officials out there swindling money, enjoying or drinking from him or her. It's actually her, because then definitely that's a woman if they are suckling from her. So they're suckling, and by the time we know it, Kenyans will have lost everything.
Yeah, it's really true, because the leadership is what is failing us as a country. That Kenyans are suffering, and they want to get all. We know we have been promised a lot by government. We have been told that these PPEs will be given to us free. We have been told that masks are being made by the local industries that we have in Kenya, but we still have Kenyans who cannot access them, and politicians are taking advantage of it, probably to play politics with it. Others have gotten this particular, they have been given that particular mandate to deliver these particular PPEs, but then they are being delivered some of them are substandard. They don't meet the conditions that have been set, and therefore the people who are suffering, the Kenyans down there, they are the ones who continue to suffer, and they seem to be begging to be given that as though it is a privilege. It is a right for Kenyans because we pay taxes. We pay taxes to the government, and we expect them to reciprocate by just issuing them. And I don't see why there is usually a lot more hula baloo when it comes to that. You have to take photographs to show Kenyans that you are giving them masks. I mean, you can just distribute them without having to go public, because that is where you make leadership appear as though it's only the high-end people who can do that. As Kenyans, we need to help each other without taking into consideration our status as a person. We need to help each other the way we can without saying that one person is big or the other is small. We all are Kenyans, and therefore we need to be very keen when it comes to dealing with certain kind of issues.
All right, and as you said, the politicians and the politics seem to be coming on board, or they seem to be coming on board to try and distract us from the fight against COVID-19, out here trying to get their chunk, out here trying to, enjoy. And as captured by Stano on the People's Daily newspaper, cartoon edition, Kalonzo Musyoka pictured right there trying to enjoy something from the handshake. This is now, of course, according to the agreement that they had with the Jubilee Party, something that has not been received so well with ODM. So we might not be able to expound some more on that, even as we take at a story, look at a story that has been captured also here on how the DP is out here trying to, woo the people on, of course, Right Honorable Raila Odinga's tough areas, and that is, I don't know why I'm not able to get that story. Yes, he's trying to woo people from Nyanza just to try and see whether they can come to his side. Probably going against, this is it, going against what it is that has been declared by the Ministry of Health, that politicians, President Uhuru Kenyatta also saying, should not be holding some of these sessions because it is not right at this time of COVID-19. But as you can see, Deputy President William Ruto hosted legislators from Nyamira to drum up support for his presidential campaign. So much revolving around that, but time would not allow us to go through that. Collins Bore, thank you so much for your time. That's where we get to look the newspaper review segment. As we cross over to the current affairs segment, Joseph Simehar will be joining me and Kijana Steve to expound some more on the crucial topics that we have after this break. Welcome back to the broadcast. And this morning, governance expert Joseph Simeha joins me alongside Kijana Steve to take us through what, of course, we've touched on, or what we consider as, key stories that involve you and are of importance. We got, extensively on the same. I mean, these are stories that we probably touched on before, but they're conversations that are ongoing and developing by the day. So it is only fair that we go through them. To kickstart the conversation is on the Senate stalemate that was witnessed as of yesterday, seventh time, where the Senate has had a sitting to deliberate on whether, on what counties should get in terms of the revenues and the sharing. So at least no county feels like it's left out, or no county gets more than the rest. And if they get more, then of course it will be based on the most appropriate formula that they will agree on. And they were not able to agree on anything, gentlemen. Probably, I don't know, what were your expectations as of yesterday? To start off, Joseph?
I didn't expect any different, because of the concern that a lot of debate, both in Senate and in public, is majorly based on misinformation. Because what we are discussing, what is being discussed a lot in the public, is supposedly a formula given by the Revenue Commission, CRA, Commission for Revenue Allocation. But what is before Senate? It's not the formula that was given by Commission for Revenue Allocation. What is before Senate, what has failed several times, what has become very contentious, is a formula but that was worked by the Senate, a Senate committee that is responsible, for bringing this business to the floor of the Senate. So what is being discussed a lot erroneously as a formula given by CRA is not a formula given by CRA, and therefore there was always bound to be all these disagreements and commotion and controversy, as you've been saying. So it's not any different. I think the senators took, in my humble opinion, they took the best option out. That they need to pull that debate from the floor of the Senate. They needed to do that to have discussion in an environment where there's minimal polarization and tension than that which had built over the last 2 weeks or so.
Right.
So I think they did a good thing to just pull it away from the floor of the Senate. I hope they get serious about what they say, that they can sit down now in some sort of kamkunji, informal environment, calm environment, and have deeper discussions, devoid of the chest thumping and stand grunting on this and that, 1 shilling, 1 man, 1 kilometer, and so on and so forth.
But there are other shadow sittings that are being convened, and even before yesterday's session, there was a secret meeting that was held, especially from senators from the marginalized community, painting a picture of, the likelihoods that there's so much high sabotage in regards to, attaining a truce. So when you look at such a scenario, and also this claim by CRA, like you had rightfully put it, they say that the revenue sharing formula has been mutilated as it stands, and the Commission of Revenue Allocation says that the third revenue generation formula that it awarded to the Senate last year was heavily mutilated and its spirit overshadowed by politics, leading to the current stalemate. Kijana Steve, these shadow meetings and this other meeting that the senators are calling for, the grand meeting where they'll be able to address this, just how genuine are they in terms of ensuring that they get a truce?
Well, I want to start by saying hi to the people of Kenya and all our viewers of TV47. Moving forward to the discussion, I want to start by quoting David Easton, who was the person who gives birth to the study of political science. And according to his explanation, political science is the scientific and authoritative allocation of value or resources. So whenever you see politics, it is definitely the major issue is about allocation of resources. So what we are seeing right now and what has been happening is actually the real politics, because politics is all about resources. These shadow meetings are bound to happen because every region is fighting for their own interests in terms of resources, because we know that marginalization and development are both results of the kind of resources that are injected to a certain area. So these marginalized communities, knowing that they were the ones that were bound to lose, and of course, they had to caucus and probably see if they can find a vote to probably bring these individuals who have come with some sort of entitlement, because the central region this time, despite I being from the region, has come with a very great degree of entitlement, that we are many, that we contribute greatly to the GDP of this country, and therefore we deserve a higher share. And I want to say one thing, that the Constitution in Articles 201, 202, 203, and even in 217, it only speaks about equity. I think everyone has seen that kind of photo where equity versus equality is compared. Yeah, where equity is about giving everyone an equal platform to kind of access equal opportunities. And there is Article 203 that I really would want to read. Article 203 Article 203I, it speaks about the allocation of resources. It says that the allocation of resources should provide economic optimization of each county and to provide incentives to each county to optimize its capacity to raise revenue. So this discussion that has been happening, saying that these marginalized and ASAL or arid and semi-arid counties do not produce revenue to this country, and therefore they deserve less money in terms of county allocation. It is a very false narrative, because the Constitution is clear. If at all a county is not able to produce a very high amount of revenue, then we are supposed to give it an incentive in terms of resources so that they can boost their revenue creation. So I think
Kijana Steve, let's loop in Simeha and take a look at this picture. And I know everyone has seen that. This is on the equality and equity photo. Equality where you all get equal amounts of tools that will help you look at the other side. So if you're in a way marginalized, if you're in a way deprived, it means you're not able to see the other side. But looking at equity, there's a point whereby, of course, the tallest, which in this case I would want to assume are the counties that have already made strides in terms of development, in terms of ensuring that they have proper infrastructure, and so much so. In comparison to others that are, trying to catch up, they're given a tallest tool. And then, of course, the ones that are struggling, the marginalized in totality, are given the tallest, so they're able to see the other side. But for how long, Joseph Simeha, and this is what has informed this conversation, that you've been given money, you've not had anything to account, to show for the monies that you've been receiving for ages. What makes us think that we should award you more? And what is the guarantee that, one, we're going to get accountability and much change this time round?
First of all, questions of public accountability for the use of public resources apply, and they apply everywhere equally.
Yeah.
That question must never be used to disadvantage some counties against others. That argument that I had some people make, though in a different context, is a right argument. It was used very badly to profile disadvantaged counties. People in well-off counties, including perhaps even more Nairobi, perhaps actually still even more than people in disadvantaged counties. So the question of corruption, the question of plan of public resources, the question of failure to be accountable is a national question. In fact, you could say that is where we are equal, that we have this problem everywhere. So therefore, it must not be used to disadvantage any county.
Yeah.
And the demand for accountability and also the demand for equity, they are not mutually exclusive. That we can say that we will let people of Garissa or Vihiga or Marsabit suffer because their governors are corrupt or have been corrupt. No, in fact, it is the duty of national government to play an active role to ensure that they assist citizens in those counties to extract accountability from those governors. So as long as any part of this nation is still left behind, that question of affirmative action must apply. Organization funds should have been enforced to ensure that these counties that require a boost to have what I call the enabling infrastructure, the enablers of economic development, acquire that capacity so that then we can put demands on them in terms of generation of local revenue. So we shouldn't talk about these things as if they are mutually exclusive, that, if we talk about public accountability on use of public resources, then we cannot talk about equity. No. These things we talk about in the same sentence and correctly so.
Right, of course, and we might not be able to weigh in as much because then they all remain as proposals that people are presenting. But coming to the aspect of politics, and I think if there's anything that has been blamed for the flop of these 7 times is politics. And yesterday, I don't know how you viewed the scenario and the talks in Senate at that particular time. Steve Kijana. Do you suppose that the leadership of the majority leader and whip, that is Samuel Pogisho and Irungu Kangata, was put to test, or these leaders were put to test in how they performed after, Jubilee pounced on some of the members of the Senate and, wiped them out? And you can clearly tell that one would want to argue that it was more or less like a win for Senator Kipchumba Murkomen.
Well, first of all, I want to agree with Senator Madzayo, who said that Samuel Pogisho and Irungu Kangata, who are the majority leader and whip respectively, failed to inspire confidence in their majority teams. It was unfortunate because in such a bill, we expected the majority side to really come together. And of course, we have recently seen the Senate really come together during controversial times. We've seen them come very closely together during the times of Waiguru, during the times of impeaching Waititu. What that tells you is that whenever there is a common interest, they are very easily mobilize themselves to vote towards a certain direction. What happens in this case? You saw Senator Orengo voting for no to adjournment, and another close ally of Raila Odinga, Judy Pareno, voting for yes. So what is happening here, I think, and I believe, is that counties have now come to really fight for themselves. And we have seen a situation where even counties like Nairobi, through their senators, are really, despite the fact that they could be gaining, they have also come to the side of the minority. So that tells you that there is a lot of politics at play, because I don't want to really impute on the position of Senator Murkomen. But when you see Senator Murkomen speaking, he has been closely allied to DP Ruto, although even Cherargei, who was on the contrary side, is also allied to DP. But I want to believe that this conversation really involves the future of BBI. And you saw Kangata the other day trying to threaten the senators that if you don't vote, for his formula, then he's going to really whip them. I think Kangata is using the wrong means to whip the people. And we have seen William Ruto coming out to speak for a win-win formula. What this tells you is that he is really eyeing the support of the marginalized, because he has by advocating for a win-win formula, that means he is supporting the marginalized who are about to lose if things went as they were supposed to go. So I think there is a lot of politics at play, and of course 2022 and BBI politics at play, where Kangata is also careful, and that's why he has been speaking of this formula, besides passing it, that it can stay for 3 years without, being in implementation. I think if you look at all these parties, they are trying to really make sure that this new formula does not go into implementation, because if either side has a formula that will definitely marginalize the marginalized, then you can be sure that the marginalized will react against them. The elections of BBI 2022.
And speaking of which, to bring in Simeha as we wind up on this subject, now that Steve Kijana has brought on board the BBI aspect, and talks on ground is that, the senators have gone against President Uhuru Kenyatta and Right Honorable Raila Odinga. First of all, looking at it at that BBI angle, the handshake angle, and the political angle come 2022, is it an undoing for Right Honorable Raila Odinga and some of the leadership, the likes of, Sakaja, who also have, received some proper bashing in regards to the same?
Again, the question of BBI, the way it has been discussed in this context of revenue allocation, again, completely misplaced, because mostly, based on my very thorough knowledge of what BBI is about, and partly even what is the content of the initiative, a lot of the statements that are being made are based on ignorance. I keep wondering, do we know the same thing, or is there something else they know when they talk about BBI? When Kenyatta uses that as a threat, and I wonder, does he really know? But anyhow, in the larger political context, if what the senators have done may appear to have gone against the directives of their party leaders, that is Kenyatta and Raila, I think it's good for the nation. I think it's really good for the nation. As Sakaja said, a party position is different from positions of individuals, even if those individuals are the highest officials in the party. So a party position is a much more healthy position if a party has caucused, discussed, subjected it to critique and so on, and then consensus or a vote has decided that this is a party position. Now that's good for the party, that's good for the nation. But in the name of BBI, that what is being supposedly imposed on these senators are positions of individuals, however high they are in their parties. That is not for those parties. That is not good for the nation of Kenya. That is certainly not good for BBI. At least for the BBI I know, that would not be good for BBI. It will not be a building bridges initiative that requires a national conversation, a national dialogue. It cannot be, and it must never be, about imposing a position. But please note this in conclusion. There are many, I call them cartels, that use their proximity and names of very high officials to push their personal agendas, and they present these agendas in the names of these officials and their parties. Kenyans better beware about these people, these heads of cartels, and some details are beginning to come out in relation to COVID-19 theft and planned and so on. People better beware about these individuals that use names of Kenyatta, Odinga, and so on to push for their personal agenda, private agenda, and not anything to do with BBI.
All right. Well, of course, there's as we drop on that particular subject and we cross over to a different subject, as we deal with COVID-19, there are a lot of things that we're coming to learn at this point of time as a country. Adapting to that aspect of people working from home, adapting to a scenario where, it's happening right here in the country, and we have to do some of the shows and numerous of the shows, online and virtually. This is something that has pushed us to that point where we have to adapt and, get things moving despite the fact that we are at home. This report shows that civil servants are, what one would consider as oldies, 9 out of 10 are above the age of 46, going all the way to 58. And as we try to adapt, there's this report that says that most of the government projects have stalled up because apart from, them owning smartphones, they are literally not tech savvy. They're not interested in matters, technology. And then that means they're not able to work from home. So when you look at this particular report about the civil servants, first of all, what does it speak? And remember, for the longest of time, the young turks have been complaining that they are jobless. And they're jobless because still those positions are being held by the oldies who do not want to exit the stage. Or if it is that they do not want to exit, if it's not about that, then it means maybe that the retirement age is, way above the limits that should be. Steve Kijana, I'd want to start with you. What do you make about these reports?
Well, first of all, I think that it brings a very serious discussion about the importance of young people and ICT in our day-to-day runnings of government and of our institutions. First of all, I want to just, go a bit into a matter that has been very, very, very wanting. We have seen the recent launch of a platform on ICT for the police and the digitalization of occurrence books.
Yeah.
In the recent past, we have seen that our young people are very innovative in terms of IT. And apparently, this elder generation who sits in those high administrative seats have for long oppressed these young people. We have had so many of these young innovators complaining that they sold their ideas to government in terms of innovative ICT ideas, but these ideas were taken and they were not rewarded. So I think the fact that our elder generation are not very able to really be up to date with what we are doing, it is because we have really not taken the importance of our young people, who probably are the ones who are tech savvy in kind of operations. We have for long continued to give our young people those small responsibilities in offices and let those major responsibilities go with the senior ones who are probably elder. And that is why we have been speaking so much about the inclusion of young people in the decision-making tables of various institutions. Because right now it is a time where basically, for those who are probably not tech-savvy, our young people would have been helping them if they had been involved before COVID. So I think it is quite unfortunate that our elder people probably are not able to keep up to date. But I think it also brings us a question of, are we really involving our young people in our operations of our institutions as they should be, and are we really appreciating their input?
All right, quite an unfortunate report, so to speak, Joseph Simeher. Is it a question of ignorance or it is an undoing of age, really? I'm not able to get Joseph. I don't know whether you can hear me.
Question of but it's a question of national character.
So very clear.
Anything that comes in the way of people who want to steal, people who want to perpetrate corruption, people who want to use public office for private gain, they will subvert it. That there are so many innovations that have been introduced in government, but they stall, not because people who are above 46 or even 50 or even 70, by the way, not because they can adapt. What a 26-year-old can do with IT, even a 56, 76-year-old can actually do with IT.
Yeah.
But because of national character, especially in the public service, when these innovations are introduced and people see that they will enable more public accountability, they will close the taps for plunder and corruption, they will resist, they will subvert these innovations. I'll give you one example. In 2016, the then Chief Justice and the Commissioner of Police, it was still Commissioner of Police, introduced a new system for dealing with the traffic offences. I think they call it minor offences, minor traffic offences, that would have required less time spent with police. You can very quickly, if you have committed a minor traffic offence, you admit and very quickly pay, and this required the use of very simple IT, very, very simple. The judiciary and the police completely refused to operationalize this system, not because they don't know IT, not because they cannot adapt, but in my experience and in my opinion, and I think it's an objective opinion, because it stops the theft on the roads. It creates opportunities to receive cash. That is majorly the problem with lack of adoption of IT and innovative solutions, including working from home and so on, in the public service.
People are keeping things running, and this is not just here, it's across the world. And I think I would want to agree with you that the global fraternity, the superpower, the mature democracies, you find that yes, the oldies are able to disseminate their duties at the comfort of their homes. Are we staring at a disaster once things go back to equilibrium, if at all they will? Joseph.
Yeah. I don't think there will necessarily be a change unless this crisis, shock two things. This crisis provides an opportunity, but then an opportunity alone without leadership, nothing will change.
All right, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
It's the leadership that sees the opportunity in this crisis and pushes them towards changing our national character. And I should hope, by the way, that it can come out to the public. It's part of what BBI proposes. If really this BBI is not just a ruse, that is a serious initiative for national conversation. One of the things in there is about discussion on our national character. Then things like IT, then things like even this crisis, this COVID-19 crisis, can be an opportunity for us to change. We change our national character so that we use this opportunity to change the way we do things. But if we don't get leadership, a leadership that will push for this as a national conversation, there will be nothing different. We will go back where we, in quotes, stopped. It will be, we stopped, let us go back and begin afresh. But then in between what we are calling a lost year, if we don't know whether it will be a year or more, you will discover horrendous things that will have happened, in the name of plunder of public resources. So risk depends on leadership and how much citizens demand that this country must take advantage of this crisis to change our national character.
Okay, well, we'll drop that one and see how it's going to pan out as we cross fingers that, activities will not stop to a point where we'll not be able to revive anytime soon. But speaking now of an interesting conversation that is ongoing, and now the Parliament is set to debate on the amended Parliamentary Pensions Act of 2019, an act that seeks to see them getting 100,000 every other month once they exit the stage on matters policies. Not really matters politics, but once they cease to be members of Parliament. First of all, just is it a picture of a greedy house, or genuinely there is need for them to get this amount of money every time that they have exited the stage, Steve?
I think this is a discussion that is very interesting, and it really paints a picture that is very unfortunate for the country. I have seen the conversation where they want to increase their pensions to, I think, 100,000. I think it is from about 33,000. And there was also a discussion on whether this pension should be increased for those who have served 2 terms. And of course, they were really against that kind of a discussion. I think there is a comment that I saw from the Deputy Governor of Nyeri, who was saying that we see these members of Parliament, of course, both the National Assembly and the Senate, coming and, very vocal when we are allocating resources or when we are allocating some money to, various offices or to themselves for pensions and all that. But we don't see that kind of input when these members of Parliament are discussing wealth creation for our country. We don't see that kind of attendance in Parliament when, certain important motions, such as, how we can improve the livelihood, how we can create employment for young people, how we can, caution our people during this COVID-19 hard economic time. We do not see them, coming out with such, energy. But whenever they look at themselves and their future, they are very, very concerned about their future because they understand that they have really failed. It pains for members of Parliament who are so concerned about what they will earn after pension. It tells you a lot that if only they had worked so hard when in parliament to better the lives of the people who are out there and to better the economy of this country and to make and pass laws and policies which are going to improve the kind of economy that we have out there, then there will not be need of high amounts of pensions, because even when they go out there, they have already served the people and they are going to fit in the economy that they will find out there. So it paints a picture of a parliament that knows it has failed, that knows it has not really served its purpose in terms of empowering the people it is supposed to empower, and therefore they must, secure their retirement benefits because they understand that the voters may not also as well vote them back. So I think it is quite unfortunate for Parliament to be really quite obsessed about such a proposal.
Yes, some of them retire before they even have hold ground, probably one term, and you're off the office. And look at this scenario, Joseph Simeha. First, it is only fair that yes, people are awarded good pensions so that they can be able to enjoy their retirement age. But why is it that there's so much bone of contention and resentment against this or towards this? Is it because these are members of parliament, or genuinely this is a selfish move from them?
It's a very, very bad law, and it's a very bad practice. It's and to follow it in this. Let me explain why I call it a very, very abuse. Repeatedly say very, very bad law. Law needs to be based on policy, national policy that has been discussed. You have involved the public. You have rationalized and settled that this is how we need to treat our retired public servants and state officers, but let's look at them generally as public servants. But instead, this law is about picking a small category, a very tiny category of public servants. We have hundreds of thousands of public servants in this nation from different sectors, from different categories, but we are now have Parliament targeting only a small category and treating them as special. It would be best if we had a policy discussion, national policy discussion on how our public servants in service and post-service in retirement. And they would be grouped in categories or bands, if you like. And then we would determine how much and even how to raise for their pensions. But not to pick and choose, cherry pick and choose small categories. So then tomorrow it will be retired councillors. Then maybe someone powerful from, say, central bank, it will be retired central bankers. Then another day, another category. It is really a very bad law. And especially when laws are made in Parliament and they are being either parliamentarians or retired parliamentarians, it's a terrible law. It's a very bad precedent for the nation. And I think we have an opportunity to scrap it and revisit the issue of pensions, public pensions for public servants.
Yeah. Or how much are we able to sustain this, looking at how we've even struggled to sustain our very own budget? And I was having a conversation with my editor yesterday, and his argument was like, in his constituency, they've had numerous members of parliament, in the sense that, the first time this one comes, their first time, before they know it, they're out. The next time, they're having a different figure, they're having a different face. So they, within this Amendment Act or Amended Act, there is also this clause that says remove requirement. They wish to remove the requirement that those who served for 2 terms only are the ones who are going to get these amounts of money. So yes, there's that requirement that unless you've served for 2 terms, you're not able to get this benefit. But they want to scrap that off. I mean, does it paint a picture of members of parliament who are struggling even when in office as it stands today? Because you say that they need to plan themselves, but as always when they exit the stage, you find that they're struggling out here. Hence, maybe what could have triggered this move by them, Steve?
To be very fair to members of parliament, as much as their move is selfish, and of course, as I had said, they don't really want that idea of only having to serve for 2 terms in order to enjoy such a benefit. This is because, as I told you, the way and their input while in office is not sufficient to earn them a second term. And that is where you have found, in Kenyan politics, most members of parliament nowadays really only serve for 1 term. But you will find that members of parliament, like the likes of Kibaki, in their times, they will serve for, continuous terms because maybe there are people believed in them. But what you find here are members of parliament who are quite insecure. However, I also want to really speak about the people. As you asked whether these are members of parliament who are already living troubled lives while in office, we have very high levels of expectations for our members of parliament. And I think, as Simeka said, there is a very great level of lack of information among our people. Like right now, we have our people not knowing which formula are we discussing. The same way, our citizens don't understand what role the members of parliament play while in that house, because the role of members of parliament is basically representation and legislation. However, we have seen our citizens really expecting the members of parliament to really contribute to their harambees, contribute to their livelihoods, contribute to by giving them handouts. So I think we also have very high expectations for our members of parliament, that probably they spend most of their earnings on the people, and therefore they believe that since we spend on you, the new people also deserve to give us back through your taxes.
Well, this is an interesting conversation that is still ongoing, and we wait to see whether it will sail through or not. And crossing over to a different subject altogether, the very same members of parliament and political leaders are now saying that they need their nicknames, incorporated on the ballot. Joseph Simeha, I mean, is it necessary that we go this direction? Because there are people who have argued that they've lost their votes because, most of the people who are going out there to vote did not know their actual one. I hosted a member of parliament here at some point in time. He said, he would have garnered more votes if, his nickname was incorporated on the ballot. And here we are. There are likelihoods that we have the likes of Sonko, the likes of Baba having their names incorporated on the ballot. A good move? Necessary?
Who had a citizenry that was well informed, that was educated, politically aware, you'd never worry about whether they are recognized or not. But these same people who are saying this prefer to have ignorant citizens whom they can cheat, whom they can steal from, and so on and so forth. So they would be arguing about making it easy for them to be recognized using their nicknames that have gained notoriety, because if you do that with an ignorant mass, it is so easy when you have an ignorant mass, and then you whip up some kind of some kind of that this is the name you must go for. So, but if people are well informed, if people are literate and especially politically aware and politically literate, this doesn't matter what name you use, they will know who they are looking for. But members of parliament, politicians, people who want to be presidents and so on, most of them prefer an ignorant mass that then you can whip like a cult. You can whip a cult and say, ours is Sonkoism or Babaism or whateveism, Babayaoism, let's go for it. I fault them for wanting citizens to remain ignorant so that they can be hardened using symbols like nicknames.
Yeah. All right, well, Steve Kijana, what's your nickname?
I think I want to disagree with...
No, what is your nickname first, Steve?
First of all, Kijana is actually my nickname, which Kijana I had to add to my...
So you'd want Kijana on the ballot?
I actually was forced to really add my name officially through the Registrar of Persons, because in 2017, personally, when I contested, my name on the ballot came out as Steve Maina Nderi. However, the people are really wondering, who is this? Because as we know Kijana Steve Nderi, we don't know who this a simple Maina is. So I think, first of all, I think it is only fair to politicians. I think if you look at 90% or 80% of politicians in Kenya, people already have a culture of not calling them by their original names. We have seen that, people, the deputy president actually finds pride in being called hustler, because that is the term many people want to address him with. We have our current senator in Nyeri, because he was the person who moved this motion in the elections amendment bill. He was the person who moved this motion in Senate. And I think it is an important thing, because for him, he's called Kirinyaga, yet his name is Ephraim Maina. So what happens is that citizens do not really address politicians. Being public figures, they don't really address politicians by their original birth certificate names. They address them by the names that are popular. So actually, it is not about nicknames, but this amendment basically calls it popular names. And it is an amendment of Section 32 of the Elections Act, where we now want to introduce popular names, where if you are Steve Maina and people call you Kijana Steve Derry, then let's go by the name that is popular to you, so that you are not disadvantaged at the ballot. So I think it is not a very unfair discussion. It is only fair to politicians that let's give them the names that the people know. Because what happens is that we go to the ballot and give them names that people do not know.
All right. Well, that's an interesting one. I would have decided to challenge that in a way. But in this case, I do not have the liberty. So we'll proceed and say, let's wait and see whether this will be approved. And probably the next time you go to vote, that is in 2022, you have your favorite politician with their popular name there, and it becomes easy for you to vote. I don't know whether it is more crucial to have the picture of this person or more crucial to have their name, the popular name that you're used to, of course, calling them on. And crossing over to the last subject of the day. And this is something that we woke up to. This should be the last, towards the last days of last week, over the weekend and coming to Monday. And it's a conversation that has been going on for the longest of time. The tiff that has been there, diplomatic tiff, row between Kenya and Tanzania. Every other time we always come out, to have this sibling rivalry. Joseph Simeher, there is some level of elusiveness in finding togetherness between Kenya and Tanzania, and this seems to be escalating at a higher level, where in a way it alters the efforts towards ensuring that we attain East African integration. What do you make of this?
I've been there for a while. Longest time I can imagine in fact and Kenya, it seems to be a very deep sense of mistrust of Kenyans by Tanzanians, which has several of their leaders, and when I say they, I mean Tanzanians leaders and public officials. It may have been triggered by part of our bad behavior, possibly, but that is no excuse for sister countries for this thing to persist to such an extent that it becomes petty. Because to me, when I look at some of the issues that have manifested this tiff, it is complete pettiness. It's as if the nations belong to the leaders, and it's a competition between the leaders. But when Tanzania, for example, slaps some ban on Kenya, or vice versa, it is not these leaders who suffer. Tanzanians suffer, Kenyans suffer.
Okay.
Sorry?
It's okay.
Yeah. So when these leaders and public officials take these very, very petty actions in the name of their republics, it is not the governments or those leaders that suffer. It is the ordinary people that suffer.
Yeah.
And they just need to overcome their on both sides. And I'm not singling out any one country. These people need to overcome their pettiness and their mistrust. These are sister East African community countries. They have to run at the pace of the people. The people have gone far much ahead in terms of integration, in terms of trading together, in terms of intermarriage, in terms of social relations and cultural relations across the border. Those borders don't mean much. The people who are having to run to catch up with the people, I wonder whether they will ever catch up, are public officials and high-level leaders. They need to overcome their pettiness and conduct the business of their republics in a better way.
I was having a conversation with somebody who follows up a Morning Cafe very well, and he was complaining that we need to be lenient on how we're dealing with this issue. We need to consider the Kenyans who are living in Tanzania, because when this tiff is there, it is them that suffer. And he was literally crying, showing me some of the proposals that they had back there. Kijana Steve, there are
Well,
issues that are of importance. Okay, well, maybe just loop in, weigh in your sentiments on the same, and then we come and address these issues that are of importance.
Well, today, as we stand, August, you remember on August 1st, this was an anniversary of 1 year from when President Magufuli gave the president of Kenya some peacocks. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah.
And of course, a certain editor has, described our foreign policy or our diplomacy as peacock diplomacy, which is not becoming very fruitful towards Tanzania. I want to flash you back to 2016 when CS Keter for Energy was detained at Tanga port. And it was about, when the issues, I think, of pipeline. Later, you found the Tanzanian team of the Tanzanian government confiscated over 1,300 heads of cattle, which were crossing over to our border.
Yeah.
They later banned over 5,000 chicks.
Yeah.
Another bunch of chicks which were worth over 500,000. So what is happening is that, first of all, Tanzania has kind of, opened and healed wounds. We have had a very strained foreign policy to them. But I also want to really agree that this country really needs to take some issues with leniency and with care. I think it is time that some of the statements that are made by our president, some of the statements that are made by our CS, especially for health, and maybe CSs, they really need to be scrutinized by experts. I think we need, foreign policy experts to really scrutinize every public statement made by our government so that we see if it impugns or it hurts our relations with our neighbors, especially in the East Africa. You know that in East African community, we have a policy of free movement and trade. So considering that we have that and it has really opened our East African economies, then we really need to be very careful on how we relate with our East African neighbors. And I think Kenya has really, of recent past, we've seen, and especially with our bid to be part of the Security Council, we have, I think, gotten a certain illusion as a country and in our foreign policy that we are kind of, the US of this region, where we want to really kind of bother about the internal affairs of other countries. So I think it is about time that we really don't bother or want to interfere or even want to comment about the running of affairs of Tanzania. Because as you said, we have our citizens there. And of course, considering that there is probably minimum freedom of the press, a lot of things could happen without our knowledge. A lot of profiling may happen without us maybe being able to really help. We are aware that one of us, Yasin Juma, who is part of your media fraternity, is currently in Ethiopia facing charges. So we really need to be careful and with our foreign policy to ensure that we don't really hurt our people who are there. And of course, we also don't hurt the trade that is happening in East African community with the free trade and the free movement kind of policy.
All right. And speaking of which, we would want to ask then, there are numerous times where we've been forced as a country to compromise on so much just so we're able to upgrade and uphold East African integrity or integration. And looking at what brought us to this conversation, the latest thief that has been there, Joseph Simeher, do you suppose that as a country, then sometimes we are forced to the knees and we get a little bit more lenient or too lenient so that crucial issues are not addressed? Because I'm looking at a scenario of what was there, on the Migingo Island and the Migingo issue that is still, a bone of contention, the maritime border dispute between Kenya and Tanzania, and numerous other disputes. And now we're talking about Kenya saying that, we're not going to let loose of Tanzanians' flights to come into the country because Tanzania has decided that it's going to deal with COVID-19 differently from what the rest of the world has done. So going a little bit lower on that, or, loosening up on this particular stand, is it being too lenient?
I think we should never, as a nation, compromise on something. And I give examples of public health, social integrity, Generally issues of the welfare safety of the people of Kenya. Government of Kenya must never ever compromise. We as citizens of the Republic, including public and state officers, must never compromise on our openness society. Kenya is a much more open society, but in fact we are not as open as we ought to be. But we must never want to bring down the level of our openness as a society so that we may please our Tanzanian or any other neighbor. However, how we communicate our position, I think, matters. Kenya, to the best of my knowledge, if I may pick one example, did not bar flights from Tanzania, but it just did not put Tanzania on the list of those people flying from that nation would not be subjected to 14 days quarantine, compulsory quarantine. From the information in the public domain, Tanzanians learned about this in the media like everybody else. Now that is really bad. If that is true, that is really bad. Even though Kenya was doing the right thing for its citizens, Tanzanian government and authorities, aviation authorities, deserved to have been informed of this diplomatically in advance before the situation was public. So on all of these things, I do not think there should be any compromise on territorial integrity, national security, public safety, welfare of the people of Kenya, our democracy and openness. But however, our public officials should really shape up in terms of their diplomatic skills so that before things go public, they have communicated with their counterparts in our sister countries. And regardless of what their counterparts do now after that, we continue.
Joseph, let me ask, what makes Tanzania different? Because they will always come up with that radical approach or a tit-for-tat approach, as opposed to, again, taking that diplomatic direction.
Is that to me, Okijana?
Yes.
It is you, Joseph. We're still on you because you're talking about, a diplomatic approach from Kenya. And then my question then, what makes Tanzania different? Because instead of, again, taking a diplomatic approach in addressing this, they always go radical and, they pull the tit-for-tat card.
That is where I stated that once done what is required of us, because a lot of diplomacy, by the way, happens away from cameras, away from the public.
Yeah.
Once responsible officers have done what is required away from the public, now they can go public and maintain Kenya's position without any apology. I do not think Kenya should be babysitting Tanzania. I do not think so at all. So once we have done what they ought to do in private, in my opinion, Kenya must maintain its standards for the good of its people. The responsibility of the Kenyan government is primarily to its people, and then, of course, to our sister nation, neighbors, and then to Africa, and then to the rest of the world.
To what extent will this harm the quest to East African integration in totality, Steve Kijana?
Well, I want to really take you back to 2015. First of all, we understand that Kenya and Tanzania, of course, being members of East Africa and community, have bilateral air services agreement. And of course, we are supposed to have our flights going into Dar and maybe back. But you remember in 2015, after Kenya banned some tour vans from coming, I think, to JKIA or something of the sort, Tanzania reduced our flights from 42, Kenya flights to Tanzania or Dar, from 42 to, I think, sort of 15. So I think, as Simeka is saying, I think we should not really sacrifice our national interest because of because of the East African community relations. Because even them in the past, Tanzania in the past, they have always gone for their interest. When we banned their tour vans, they also went on to reduce our kind of flights to that. So I think especially when it comes to a health issue, and when we think that they are really not following the World Health Organization guidelines, then I think we really need to focus more on our interest as a country, or on our national interest. And I think national interests will always supersede any other foreign interest. So I think we will not be in error by doing that. But however, even as we do that, we just need to be careful in some of the statements we make, to ensure that we don't really impugn on those relations. But on maybe going for national relations at the expense of such kind of foreign policy, I think we should do that. But however, as leaders of East African community, I think they should really come together and through their chair to really come kind of sort those issues, because we understand that Africa is really on a journey to Pan-Africanism, on a journey to uniting as Africa. So of course, such strained relations between states are not very good for the picture as a country and even as a region.
All right. Thank you so much, governance expert Joseph Simeha, and also analyst Kijana Steve. It was great having you this morning. Those are the key topics that we had prepared to touch on. Conversations that are ongoing. You can always, of course, get this conversation on our social media platforms in case you came in while we were still on the session, or you came in late. TV47 hashtag Morning Cafe on Periscope, that is Twitter, TV47KE, Facebook TV47. You can grab a look on that conversation that has been very candid towards the issues that affect us as a country. That's where we're going to wind up this particular session as we cross over to a different session altogether. Thank you so much for the feedback that is coming in. But this time around, due to public demand, again, we bring you that session of breastfeeding, and we'll be having a specialist that is a lactating consultant who's going to take us through the process of breastfeeding. Just a reminder that this is a breastfeeding week, so it's important that we all come together towards ensuring that we take part of it, because this way we are going to guarantee ourselves a healthy future, healthy babies and healthy human beings in the future. So after this break, we're coming with that and much more. Don't you go anywhere. Morning Cafe. It's time for the lifestyle segment. And today, mommies, we got you covered. And actually, it's not just for mommies. I guess it's for everyone, because when someone is breastfeeding, yes, we're talking about breastfeeding, lactating for that matter, it should be, an involvement for everyone, including the daddy. Support is very, very important. I remember back then when some of us were breastfeeding, like every other person in the family was involved. They would make you milk, they would give you hot, like soup and all this. So it's an affair for everyone. And we are going to talk matters lactating. And we have a lactation expert on board with us this morning. Esther, good morning.
Morning.
You good?
I'm good.
Yes, Esther Karaoke. Good to have you.
Kimani.
Karaoke Kimani.
No, Esther Kimani.
Esther Kimani. Karaoke is not your name.
No.
Oh, all right.
Okay,
well, Esther Kimani.
This is my grandfather's, but
You use.
my husband's is Esther Kimani.
All right. Well, Kimani, I understand now. I understand where that comes from.
Yeah.
Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
All right. So, what's the name of the baby?
We can give him a name. Or is it a hash? Is in pink? I don't know.
I don't know. Well, all right. Let's get a name that is that would just fit a man and a woman, a boy and a girl.
Amani.
Amani would work.
Yes.
All right, let's call the baby Amani. So yes, here we are this morning, and we're all about learning about lactating and breastfeeding a baby and all that. It's a process, right? Even before you get the baby, I think it's important that we start from there. So at what point then does the lactating process start?
Actually, it starts from the moment you get pregnant.
Okay.
When you get pregnant, the hormones that are helping the pregnancy progress also help the breast milk to start, your breast starts preparing for this work that you're going to do. And that's why for most people, suddenly you have a burst or your burst increases right from when you get pregnant. In fact, some of the signs of early pregnancy is that your breasts either start getting sensitive, they start growing, they become tingly, and all those other symptoms that moms say. Yes.
For a moment you spoke about that, and let's just, before we even get to that aspect where, yes, one is pregnant, I've heard occurrences where someone complains of the fact that they're lactating, but really they're not pregnant. Why is this?
So if you're producing any milk and you are not pregnant, it's very important for you to go to hospital to get checked. Sometimes it's a hormonal imbalance. Most times it is a hormonal imbalance, and your body is producing the hormones that make milk. Though there's no reason to. So that one is something that should make you go to hospital to get checked. And
all right. So in this case, it's not always that when your breast is leaking, it means that you are pregnant.
Yes.
It's not always.
Yes.
All right. Yes.
But most times,
it is.
It is the
You're
case.
Pregnant.
Yes. Your body
It's a
is
beautiful
preparing.
feeling.
Yes. It is.
All right. So you spoke about breast changes. Notable ones. Yes. You feel a little bit itch.
It's sometimes soreness. You don't even want anything to touch your breast. Your breast will increase in size, and what is happening, the ducts inside the breast, the ducts that were there from when you were a teenager, start now maturing in readiness to be able to allow milk to flow through them.
I am curious, just before you even finish, okay, well, say maybe round one. Just a moment. All right, well, sorry, yes, for that one. Now, say today, this is what I've felt, maybe my first pregnancy. Is it always the same case with every other pregnancy for a particular person in the event that maybe, yes, you have some issues, or maybe you can feel some level of uncomfortability with your breast, and then it goes on to the next pregnancy? Is it always the case, or is it different?
It can be different. It might be the same, because every pregnancy is different. And the hormones released to support every pregnancy tends to be different. And so what you felt with your first baby might not necessarily be
the same thing.
So that's the miracle of birth, I guess.
All right, now let's get to it. Now at point one, of course, you're done with that. You're done with your weeks, and finally the baby is here.
Yes. So what happens the minute as you're going into labor? The hormones that actually help you to labor, and as you labor and as you get your baby comes out, the hormonal levels in the body actually shift. And we call them the birth hormones. And there's one hormone that actually gives you contractions. It's the one that helps the baby to come out. And the pain that people talk, the labor pains. There's a hormone that helps to just bring the baby forth, and it's called oxytocin. But when now the baby is born and the baby is out, there's another hormone that is stimulated. That hormone makes milk. And so it joins this other hormone that was giving you contractions to help the milk to flow. So one hormone produces milk, and that's why you feel that the milk is filling up. And then the second hormone helps the milk to flow. And that's called the same oxytocin that gives you contraction.
Right.
And it does the same thing at the breast. It helps the breast to contract and for the milk to flow out.
All right, I'm curious again, and I'm sure somebody else would be asking the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, there are numerous cases where you'll hear that yes, you've gotten a baby,
Yes.
but one, of course, the milk is not coming out. Two, you know, you're not able to breastfeed. There are difficulties that come along with that.
Yeah.
And you know, the normal difficulties of probably feeling pain and everything is okay, but there are times when literally the breast does not come out.
Yes.
The milk, sorry,
does not come out.
Yeah.
And these are some of the things we say that is some interruptions during the labor process or the birth process can interfere with the milk coming in. For example, a C-section. So when you have a C-section, as I said, it's a process of birth. It's 1A equals B equals C.
All right.
So when you like push out the baby, that
Sends a
moment when
signal
you send a
automatically, yes.
signal to the brain. So when you bypass that and have a C-section, and that's why you'll find a lot of people with C-sections will have a bit of difficulty because now you really have to work harder. You need to put the baby on the breast because also, I call it the 3 Bs. There's the baby, there's the breast,
All right.
and then there's the brain.
Oh.
So when you give birth, one of the things we encourage you to do is to put the baby on the breast immediately so that now this baby can start, as they suckle, that suckling reflex
Sends a signal,
sends a signal to the brain.
So what happened to this story? I don't know whether it's a myth or not. I'm sorry, I am asking this, but I just
okay.
want to learn.
Yeah.
There are times you're told that even if you're not pregnant and you probably put a baby there to suckle, you know, any baby, any random baby,
Yes.
if they suckle a lot, then their likelihood you're going
they
to
get milk.
produce
And
milk.
that's even for adoptive parents, especially if you've breastfed before and you adopt a baby. If you put that baby on the breast, that's one of the ways we call it relactation. And you are not pregnant, you did give birth to this baby, but that's why it's saying it's about the brain.
Okay.
The brain, that love feeling that you get, produces that hormone I'm talking about, the mothering hormone that makes milk, and milk will actually start to flow. We have stories of grandmothers breastfeeding their grandchildren. Maybe
Yes.
their daughter died and then they were left with a grandchild and the baby cries and they just put the baby on the breast and suddenly milk is coming.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, it's about the brain. And that stimulation comes when this baby comes to the
Suckles.
breast and suckles. That stimulates milk and that will help milk to flow. Yes.
All right, so I don't know. I am asking this, you know, in the most random way possible because this is Morning Cafe. We're all about asking the usual, you know, the questions that you've probably been having, and not anything to do with the medicinal aspect of anything.
Yeah.
That one we'll get on, you know, on Morning on Garage, Body Garage, of course, with Tracy.
Yeah.
We'll be doing some more of this, so it's a session that will be ongoing.
Yeah.
But on this one, it's all special about, you know, the Morning Cafe fans. And in the event that probably you are pregnant and you're still breastfeeding, what happens?
So you can continue to breastfeed.
Oh yeah?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Just cover it with your doctor. As long as there's no complication, you're carrying a healthy pregnancy, you are being able to eat well, like everything is going okay with that pregnancy, you can actually continue to breastfeed. We do encourage you from around 30 weeks to stop breastfeeding so that the milk that is in your breast can start converting to colostrum.
Yeah.
Because that's already mature milk.
All right.
So for some people, if they continue breastfeeding, their milk doesn't convert back to colostrum for now the baby who you're carrying. And the baby you're carrying also needs their colostrum.
All right.
So we do
well, let's just assume there's someone who doesn't know what colostrum is.
Colostrum is
the heavy one?
Is the first milk. You know, that first milk that comes.
The
we call
yellowish one.
Exactly.
So
We call
they
it
say.
liquid gold. That's with that yellow color. And it's full of antibodies. It's full of immunity properties that will help. First of all, they line your baby's gut. And as they line your baby's gut, they offer like a protective layer for the baby now that they've been born.
Yeah.
They help your baby get antibodies for the environment. In fact, like right now we are talking about COVID, and a lot of moms are wondering, if I have COVID, can I breastfeed? Please do, because as you are building these antibodies, you're giving that protective layer to your baby.
child, okay.
The only thing we are saying is that if you're positive with COVID, you will have to wear a mask when breastfeeding your baby.
Okay.
So you wear a mask and let other people take care of the baby when you're not breastfeeding. But when the baby needs to breastfeed, they can be brought to you, wear a mask, wash your hands, wear a mask, breastfeed. Once you're done, give your baby to someone else who is negative, who is positive, who is negative for COVID, so that they can take care of the baby. But please do breastfeed, because those antibodies that you pass on to your baby will offer that protective layer they pass on to your baby.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
That's an interesting one.
Yes.
Right there. So I look at baby Amani and I'm thinking for a moment,
Yes.
they must be hungry.
Yes.
So take us through the process.
The process.
Just pretty much quick first, and the reason why we have all this.
All
here.
these things.
Yeah.
Okay, so there are several things that you're laughing at my smiling baby.
I'm sorry. All right.
Yeah. So three things that I say that are very important, and I say this: baby, breast, and brain. So the first thing is that you should feed your baby on demand. So when your baby needs to be fed, and they will show you signs that they need to feed, and signs are they'll start off by stirring if they were asleep, and then slowly they start doing movements. They start, moving their head side to side. Is that they are looking for some who call it rooting, and they are looking for this breast. They will start smacking their mouth, mwah, 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 mwah. They'll start, eating their fingers. And then finally, if you're not noticing all that, they'll start to cry. So the first thing that we say, please feed your baby before they need to cry. Because by the time they're crying, now they're agitated, and it will be harder to attach them to the breast. So follow their signals. The second thing is that the positioning of your baby. You must position your baby correctly. So when you bring your baby to the breast, the first thing is that your baby should be as close as possible to your breast as possible. A lot of times people say tummy to tummy, but if like your arm shot, so if I say tummy to tummy, my baby's at my breast. But if I say tummy to tummy, so some people put the baby down here, and then they have to bend the baby. So what I usually say is that your baby needs to face their food, and their food is the breast. So if you are tall, put a pillow down here so that your baby is as close as possible to the breast, and then the baby's whole body should be turned to the side. Now I want for you to do a small experiment. So turn your head to the side.
To the side.
Try and swallow.
Side.
Yes. Try and swallow. That's really difficult, isn't it?
Difficult it is.
So most of us put our baby like this, and then we turn them. So that's the same thing as you turning and trying to swallow. That would be very difficult. So make sure that your whole body, the whole body of the baby is turned towards the breast, and even their head, so body and head.
Breathing
is that. So they will breathe because there is space.
There's space, right?
So when you bring the baby to the breast and they are close to the breast, what you do, you ensure that they will open their mouth, because when they come close to the breast, people wonder, what is the baby smelling? So your breast emits a smell that smells exactly like amniotic fluid. So when the baby is in the womb, they smell amniotic fluid, and then they swallow it. They tend to open their mouth and swallow it. So when they smell it, they're like, oh, I need to swallow.
This is it. All right.
So they'll open their mouth. And one of the things we encourage, if you've just given birth, even if you're taking a shower, please don't wash your breast with soap, because then you will change the smell of what your nipple is smelling, and that will confuse the baby. So try and avoid soap around the nipple. Just wash with water and allow those oils that are around the nipple to emit that smell. So when the baby smells that, then they'll open their head. So it's important for you to give not just the nipple, because a lot of people say, oh, I cracked, it was so painful. It is painful because if you just give the nipple, then the baby is not able to get a good latch, and that means they have to use much more effort and pressure, and that's what cracks the breast. So what you want to do is to give the baby the nipple and most of the areola. Areola is the dark part.
The dark bit,
I think this one shows better, where you're seeing the nipple and the darker part. So you want the baby to take the areola and most of the dark part. Now, for most of us, I know the books say all of the areola, but the African boob, oh my God,
cannot allow you to use.
So we say give the baby most of the nipple and the whole bottom half of the areola. So what you'll notice is that your baby's chin will be smack against the breast over here. And so as the baby suckles, you will see that the chin is what helps the breast, as it moves up and down, it helps the boob pumps out the milk. So it's very important for your baby's chin to be smack against the breast. And that will ensure that now the baby is getting a good hold of the breast.
And that in a huge way helps you not to feel the pain.
Not to feel the pain, exactly. You won't feel the pain. So as long as the nipple is deep within the mouth, you won't feel pain. So that's what you're trying to establish when the baby is at the breast. So that's the positioning. For yourself, it should be straight. So put pillows behind you. Be straight so that you're not having to bend to go to the baby. So the baby comes to you, make sure you get most of the areola and then allow the baby to feed for as long as they like. So you should let them feed on one breast until you feel like that breast, nothing else is coming out. What that does, it helps the baby to get what we call both sets of milk. So there's the first milk that comes out is just basically water and sugar, and that's for milk. As the baby continues on feeding, they get to the hind milk, which is the heavy milk.
All right.
So if you're feeding your baby on one side and then changing them, they'll end up not getting very full because they won't be getting the heavy milk. So feed on one breast. We don't really watch the clock.
Okay.
Feed as long as they like until you feel it's empty. If they still want to feed, then now you can change them to the other side.
Mom is with twins.
Yes.
With triplets.
With triplets.
I can imagine.
I have nephews that were exclusively breastfed up to 6 months. Because the
twins.
Yes. Your body. I have triplets who've been breastfed I have a mom who breastfed for 5 months exclusively. That's the amazing thing about your brain. So I call your brain a factory.
All right.
And a factory will churn out the product depending on the orders they get, isn't it? So the order is having this baby on the breast and having them breastfeed. And as they breastfeed, your brain is like, oh my God, we need to make milk. So with twins, with multiples, you might need to pump a lot more. So once the baby feeds, you might also need to pump. But as you remove the milk, it's a supply and demand chain. The more you remove the milk, the more the brain makes.
All right.
So
Speaking of which, now that you're talking about that, you mentioned something to do with exclusive breastfeeding, and I'd really want to know the importance of that.
Yes.
Because now that is exactly what everyone is told every other day. Ensure that you exclusively breastfeed for 6 months. Mothers are finding it very hard to do that. And I even remember fighting with my mom at some point in time because she is like looking at my little boy and thinking, well, he's so tiny. This is because you are exclusively breastfeeding. Why don't you get him some porridge? Why don't you get this and all that and everything? And sometimes you literally cannot produce enough milk. I mean, you still soldier on and push and ensure that you breastfeed exclusively?
Yes. Most times it just takes planning. A lot of us don't plan for it. So initially, the first few weeks, once you start breastfeeding the baby, you will find, as I said, it's a supply and demand.
Yes.
So what we encourage you is that at around 3-4 weeks, once you've settled, you're feeling better, you've healed, and you're always producing a bit more, you can start what we call expressing. So when you start expressing, your brain starts, it's like you're ahead of your baby. You start, you can store the milk, you can start storing, or you can start even expressing just a little more so that the baby can be given. But what happens is as you start expressing, and by the time you're going back to work, maybe a month, 2, you start storing the milk in your freezer.
Right.
So what will happen, by the time you are going back to work, your body is already used to chucking a bit more and already used to expressing. Right now, there's a law that protects mothers so that they're able to express it at their workplaces. So when you go back to work, it is your right. Even if you don't have a workplace policy, it's for us to advocate for ourselves as mothers.
Right.
You advocate so that you get that space, a lactation space where you can go and express the milk. So when you go home, you breastfeed the baby, but when you're away, you express, and then in the morning also before you leave, you express. Many thousands of mothers, millions of mothers are able to continue offering exclusive breast milk because expressing. So if you don't plan for it, it's gonna be a bit difficult. But even if your baby, if for one reason or the other you really cannot get breast milk, your baby is not yet ready for solids until 6 months because the gut, their enzymes are actually mature. So if you give your baby solids before they are ready, all the food will do is it's just a channel. It just goes. In fact, moms tell me, I gave porridge and I could tell from the poop that
it was
the baby took porridge.
So
all you're doing is irritating the baby's gut as it goes through. And that's why I speak to your doctor about a good supplement, which is basically an infant formula or an infant modified milk that is ready for baby. But what we encourage you is that with good planning, with good foresight, that I'm going back to work, so can I start expressing? And even most people tell me, oh, I express only 50 ml. But imagine if you do 50 ml and save it in like 2-3 weeks, you will be amazed. You will actually have storage for your baby when you go back to work.
Right.
So it's very possible with good support from the employer. Workout, right now there's a lot of working from home. So if you don't really need to go to the office and you're still able to work, talk to your employer. Can I come in a bit late and leave in, a bit later? Flexi time, expressing. If you live near home, can you rush home at lunchtime and feed the baby? So with good planning, you can actually achieve exclusive.
Just how
breastfeeding.
crucial is support? Now that you spoke about about it, and you say very well that of course at the level of the office setup, support is important. And back at home, what is the essence of it? How much does it come in handy to ensure that a mother is able to lactate well?
Oh my goodness, it works a lot. Actually, this year's World Breastfeeding Week is from 1st of August to 8th of August, and the theme this year is supporting breastfeeding for a healthier planet. Now, without support, most moms can't do it. It takes a lot for a mom to be able to produce milk for her baby. And as I said, it's about the brain. So if a mom is stressed, for example, so if you have a partner who is stressing you, so partners, I'm speaking to you.
Yes.
So if you're a partner and you need to support, to support your, offering stuff like even at night, sometimes going to make a drink for her so that she can breastfeed the baby. Just working out stuff so that, there's no, the drama.
Right.
Mommy drama that comes trying to lessen that. I have found that because we are a very patriarchal society, whether we like it or not, we are. So like the way you were saying, your mom would say, give porridge.
Yes.
So I noticed, like for me, when the moms in my life would come say give porridge, but my partner was like, no. We exclusive breastfeeding. Then they listened. When I said it
does not make sense at all.
They're like, no, you don't know.
You have no idea.
But because of the man of the house has said, no, we exclusive, then we're like, okay, they'll mumble, but then we're like, okay.
It's okay.
Yes. So that's the thing. It really, when you are, as a partner, supports this space, you find that the mom is able to do it, is able to support. But also grandmas, when you support her, and I love my mom. She would bring me, food. She would work out and shop and make life easier for me so that I'm able to breastfeed. So that support that the mom is offered to at home really makes a big difference. And that's why we are talking about everyone from employers to mothers. Guess what? As an employer, if this mother breastfeeds her baby exclusively, this mother is not going to be asking for time off.
I agree.
To go because the baby is unwell. She's more rested, like she knows, okay, I have had time to express, so I'm expressing, my baby is at home, they'll be okay. So her head is not at home thinking, I didn't leave enough milk for my baby. She knows that my baby is okay, so she's gonna be a better employee. So that support that we offer from the government settings, making policies that support breastfeeding.
Right.
So everyone supporting breastfeeding is a healthier baby. A healthier baby is a healthier planet.
Awesome. Awesome right there. So we have lots of stuff on the table.
Yes.
And I'm sure most of the times, I've seen mamas doing this. Like after you have expressed your milk, of course you put it on the bottle and you expect this baby to suckle the bottle and all that.
Yes.
Is there anything wrong with that, or is it still okay to just use the bottle?
So especially, that's why I carried this. In the first few weeks.
Because I've been looking around and I don't see
thinking,
anything that has the,
yes. We really discourage any other nipple than baby's mouth. Number one, because
even the pacifier one,
even the pacifier, exactly, because it causes what is called nipple confusion. Now, the way the baby holds the breast in the mouth is very different from how the baby holds the teat. In fact, I'll call it a teat from the bottle.
Yes.
So it can cause, especially when the baby is very young, it can cause what you call nipple confusion. And nipple confusion basically is the baby gets confused. So when they come to the breast, suddenly it's almost like they've forgotten to breastfeed. Because the suckling motion. So in a bottle they suck, in the breast they suckle. Those are two different movements of the tongue. And that can confuse a baby. Then secondly, babies are naturally lazy. So with a bottle, they're like, top, 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 top. They almost don't pause. Then they are full in 2 minutes. With a breast, they have to spend time there. So they're like, no, I want
opt for the bottle.
Yeah, that one, that's
the easier
easy.
one.
And as I've said, we need baby on the breast. Otherwise, breastfeeding won't be very successful for you to produce enough milk. The third thing is infection. So we found bottles becoming great sources of infection for this baby with not good immunity, just because of cleaning. So we encourage you to use a cup.
Okay.
Yeah, and a baby can comfortably take a cup. It's so easy to clean this cup. And it's very easy. If you really can't, there are bottles, and this is a spoon, right? So the milk goes down onto the bottle, onto the spoon, and then you would be able to hold your baby.
Yes.
And usually when you're cup feeding, hold the baby a bit upright.
And then position.
And then for us, we usually most of us think it's you want to hold the spoon like this.
I would have done that.
Yes. No, you tilt it to the side.
Oh, okay.
And then when the baby opens the mouth, because they'll open, you just gently tilt the spoon.
Alright.
So what babies do is they lap like a cat. They do.
Yeah.
So that's
I know,
what.
and
Yes.
that can really be annoying because you're waiting for them to clearly finish
So
this,
so you just tilt the milk
Let them
until the
do
baby
that.
is there. Same with a cup.
Okay.
You will just basically tilt the cup until where the milk reaches the baby, and then as let the baby control the flow. You just go tilting until the baby is done. So the baby is upright and they're able to actually take the
no
milk.
matter how tender they are, young.
Even
put them
1 hour
upright.
old baby can be fed with a
and you can put them more upright.
Exactly, comfortably. You just support the head. As you can see, I'm supporting both the head and the spine. And I don't know why we are afraid of turning the baby, but in the baby, in the tummy, guess how they sit? They're like that.
Oh,
yes,
right.
and they're even upside down. They're upside down. So they are okay. They're used to. They're actually used to. So all they need in their body, your body supports them. In fact, they are like that. So, but when they are out, they even have more space.
They have more space.
So as long as we support the head and the neck, and so you can actually keep the baby like that, so that they are able to be comfortable.
All right, awesome, Esther. Now let's take a short break, and we'll be right back with much more. Not really so much, because like I said, we promised that in anything to do with the nutrition and understanding all that, we'll be also delivering the same on Body Garage. It's an entire month for breastfeeding. So I think we have to do a lot of sensitization and making people understand the importance of breastfeeding. After this break, we're right back with more. directed to extend some time. This is how much issues to do with health are of importance. And I think I'll now go straight to the questions of the people because well, it would be unfair to go without answering them. Yeah. And one person asked, the portions are very, very important, especially when you're giving this to a person who's not the mother, or maybe just you're leaving the baby with a nanny. So just take us through the portions of how much a baby has to take, at what age, and all that.
Okay. So I've got this, what we call belly balls.
Yeah.
And basically, they are to tell us or show us the size of a baby.
Okay.
So when your baby is born, I don't know if the camera can see that. It's the size of a grape.
Oh, yeah?
Or a ball gum, yeah?
That is how little
this is how little the tummy is at birth.
Okay.
And the baby will take between 5 to 7 ml, just a small teaspoon of milk is enough. And that's why newborn babies need to be fed a lot more. So they'll need to be fed every 2 to 3 hours. Because if they are not, then their sugar levels will go down.
We're talking about a scenario where you give them 5 ml for say at 8 in the morning, and then they can stay up until
like 2 hours. Exactly. Yes, but we want that baby to be breastfeeding, not be fed. So put the baby on the breast. If they're there for as long as they like and they're able to remove milk, they'll get enough.
Yeah.
So that's why you shouldn't worry too much if you're feeling like you're not pouring milk by day 2, because as long as you put the baby on the breast, you'll get enough. Then they will usually do that kind of poop. It's black, that dark sticky poop that has been there through the pregnancy, and that's why they do their first poop, and it's black like that.
All right.
By around day 3, look, it's grown, It's grown.
Well, that's pretty fast,
Yeah. So it's grown.
Yes.
Yes, and it's now the size is much bigger.
Yes.
The baby will take between 25 to 30 ml, and the poop changes to be a bit green in color. By day 5.
All right. So the color is okay.
Yes, the color of the poop also changes. By day 5, you see it's much bigger. So you can compare in just the first 5 days how big the tummy grows. Yes, and the poop is that color. It's mustard yellow.
All right.
So basically, your baby's tummy will grow by day 10. It's the size of a small egg. So it really grows in the first week.
So if the poop is not that color, what does it show?
So after day 5, we want the poop to be this color.
Yes. If
the poop tends to be greenish, it could mean that your baby is not getting to the rich hind milk, because that hind milk is what gives the poop this green color, and it have little grains. They look like little white seeds in the poop. That's the color we like to see. And the baby will poop several times a day in the early days. As they grow, it changes. To know that your baby is getting enough milk, the greatest sign is urine. When you go change the diaper should be full, or look like at least it has some urine. You should be changing between 8 to 12 diapers in 24 hours.
Wow.
If your baby by day 5 is not having that kind of urine, then you need to find out what's going on. And it could be that they're not latching properly, so then they're not getting milk out. So urine is your best guide to know that your baby is getting enough. Day 1, day 2, they'll have 1 to 4 diapers in 24 hours. But as they continue, as the tummy continues growing and they take more milk and your milk comes in, then you'll find that your baby is getting enough. For the mom who is leaving her baby, a good guide is if you're able to leave 25 ml per kg for that baby. So it will keep increasing as your baby grows. So if your baby is, let's say, 4 kilos, 4 times 25 is 1. What is 4 times 25? It's 100.
Yes.
So your baby will need 100 ml if they're taking from if you're giving from the cup, or if you're leaving expressed milk.
Right.
So that's basically your guide. So if your baby is older, the older your baby gets, the more milk they need. Yes.
All right, another question here. Linda, my name is Shiro. Thank you so much for bringing this session. Actually, I am up thanks to my baby who would not let me sleep. Well, of course, that's the sweetness of motherhood.
Yes.
And she says, I'm having difficulties, in getting breast milk. I don't know. She says that I am having difficulties in getting breast milk. I do not know why. Right from the word go, it wasn't easy for me. It took me like 2 days to get the milk coming. What could be the problem?
So again, as I said, the things that happened around the birth itself, maybe you had a C-section, or maybe the baby, you delayed putting the baby on the breast, the baby didn't come to the breast. So putting the baby on the breast And sometimes it's that notion. You're expecting the milk to flow. But as I said, if you're pressing your breast and you're seeing even a little milk, it's actually enough for the baby.
Is this also, something that could be caused by probably not having the best of meals? Or because I hear this a lot, that there are meals that you have to take to get, a milk coming out very fast.
Yes.
Sometimes you're being told, take them hot.
Yes.
Or it's just a myth?
That's a myth.
Oh, yeah?
Number one, put the baby on the breast. By the way, that's the foundation.
Yes.
If you don't put your baby on the breast, you're offering other meals, you're offering like formula, you are offering, you're not putting your baby, you've put your baby on a routine so that the baby has to come to the breast at particular times. Feed your baby on demand. Let the baby feed as many times as they want. That's the basics.
Yeah.
The second thing is, yes, eat well. Eat a balanced diet. Don't eat for two, eat for one, but eat a balanced diet, a meal that actually is enough so that you're taking small meals through the day, so you're keeping your blood level or your blood sugar level constant.
Right.
And then drink for two. So you should drink way more. Okay. So for example, if you're supposed to take 3 liters of fluids a day, then you should be doing 6 liters. Yes. Okay. So you're drinking a lot because breast milk is 85% water. It's very much more water than
so the fluids are needed more.
So the fluids are needed more. So you drink what you enjoy, however you enjoy them. Right. Because sometimes if I tell a mom, take this particular drink and they don't like it, they'll end up not taking enough.
Right.
So whichever drinks you enjoy, there's no magic bullet to the fluids that you take.
I'll ask this. I remember there's a time we used to be discouraged from putting milk inside, our porridge.
Yes.
I don't know why.
Yes.
But every other time, you want to have your porridge and you're told, put milk. Somebody else tells you, put milk so at least you get more milk.
Yes.
Somebody else tells you, no, it is not right. A nutritionist would tell you it is not right to mix that. I don't know.
So milk, it's a myth that if you take milk, it makes milk. No, it doesn't.
Okay.
Milk is just a drink like any other.
Okay.
Even just taking plain water will do. So it's not that if you take milk, you will get milk.
Right.
The reason we discourage adding milk is it interferes with absorption of some nutrients in porridge.
Okay.
So, but the porridge is not a drink.
Porridge is food.
It's food.
Yes.
That's why we say you eat porridge.
Yeah.
So if you're saying you're taking porridge, we're not counting that as a food. The body will treat it like eating ugali.
Okay.
So it's not enough fluids. With fluids, we're talking about soups, water, juices that you can make, herbal teas. There's some herbal teas that actually help with milk.
All right.
That we call them galactagogues. They stimulate the hormones. I say it's about hormones. They stimulate the hormones. So teas like dill seeds, fennel seeds, fenugreek. There are many out there. So you can talk to a lactation specialist to guide you on which ones to take.
Yeah.
But if you're doing all that, but you're not putting the baby on the breast, it's a waste
pointless.
of time. And then number 3, it's normal for babies to feed at night. It's important for babies to feed at night because that's when the hormones are stimulated. So if you want your baby to sleep the whole night and not feed, you won't have good milk supply. But still, I know it's an old adage, sleep when the baby sleeps. And I know some people say, oh, I can't. Yes, you can. Sometimes you may not even be able to sleep, but just go rest. Lie down in bed when the baby is asleep, because rest is also important in helping when you rest, the production of milk, your body rests and the hormones are released properly, and then you're able to make milk.
Yes. All right, another question. Someone says, okay, do lactating cookies help?
Lactating cookies.
Yeah.
So the secret is lactating. I'm sorry for the producers of this. Is actually those herbs I'm talking about.
Oh, wow.
So they have been baked with herbs like fennel, fenugreek, dill seeds. So they do help because they carry those galactagogues. Other like porridge, for example. If you would take oat porridge, for example, oats tend to stimulate the hormones that make milk. So you'd rather even take oat porridge than the Wimby porridge. So things like what is it called? Skaringuru.
Yeah.
Yes.
Skaringuru.
Skaringuru.
Okay.
So that's why people used to say molasses, or that's why people used to say that beer stimulates milk. So it wasn't the beer; it was the molasses in the beer. So if you have Skaringuru, you can crush a little and add it instead of using normal sugar. Add a bit of Skaringuru into your drink. Malt also helps. That's why again people used to say beer. So there are malt drinks that are non-alcoholic that you can take that will help. So there are little things that you can do to help your diet. even as you're putting the baby on the breast.
Amazing. So many
Yeah.
questions coming on board. I guess there's
Yeah.
so much learning to do.
Yes.
But sadly enough, time is not on our side. Well,
Yeah.
we'll forward some of these questions to Esther.
Yes.
And, in her own special way, she will get to give you feedback. But again, we promise that we can give you more of this on our session. That is our health session. That is Body Garage with Tracy Mukami. As always, it's a pleasure to have you joining us. I think I have loved the session. And we're looking forward to have you again.
Thank
Because
you.
clearly there's still so much to
So
learn.
much to do.
And
Happy
every
to
other time
come.
is a learning process.
Happy to
Thank you
come.
so much, Esther. It was great having you. Thank you, baby Amani. But all you can hear. That's why we get to wind up this particular session of Morning Cafe. It was great having you. And of course, looking forward to see you again tomorrow, same time, same place. My name is Linda Alela. Do enjoy the rest of your viewing.